going to be seeing another turnaround in inter-Korea ties as the Winter Olympics nears its end. The two Koreas marched together during the opening ceremony for the Pyeongchang Winter Games and formed a unified Korean women's ice hockey team. And now there's a chance that we might see the two Koreas joint host the 2021 Asian Winter Games. North Korea's International Olympic Committee member Chang Ung said on Tuesday that it was quote-unquote possible for the two Koreas to co-host the Games in 2021. Meanwhile, another whirlwind round of diplomacy is expected on the sidelines of the Pyeongchang Olympics, with U.S. President Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka Trump coming to the South for the closing ceremony. And before I sit down with an expert to talk more about this, let's first check on what's making the news at this hour with our Devin Whiting at the News Center. Hello, Devin.
Hi, June. We now know that there was a meeting scheduled in Seoul earlier this month between U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and North Korean officials. But North Korea pulled out at the last minute. That was on February 10th when Vice President Pence was in South Korea to attend the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Pence's office told the Washington Post on Tuesday that they had been preparing for possible talks proposed by North Korea before Pence left for Asia. The two sides had agreed to meet at the Blue House in Seoul the day after the Olympics opening ceremony, but 2 hours before the appointed time the North canceled. Pyongyang is said to have expressed dissatisfaction with Pence's announcement of new sanctions on the regime a few days prior, and his meeting with North Korean defectors and Fred Warmbier, the father of the American student who died last year, shortly after being released from 17 months of detention in the North. South Korea and the U.S. would usually be holding joint military drills this time of year, but they were postponed until after the Olympics. Now the U.S. Defense Department says the details of those drills, Key Resolve and Full Eagle, will be announced next month after the Olympics are over. In an email interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News, a Pentagon spokesperson said they were put off to ensure the security of the Games and to lower tensions. North Korea calls the drills a rehearsal for an invasion and sees them as justifying its provocative behavior. Seoul hasn't revealed anything more about this year's drills, saying the schedule will be announced at, quote, an appropriate time. U.S. automaker General Motors appears to be getting ready for a possible pullout from Korea. But in a bid to keep its operations here afloat, sources with direct knowledge of the matter say GM has offered a deal to the South Korean government in exchange for financial support and tax benefits. Park So-yeon has the latest.
GM has proposed to the South Korean government a $2.2 billion debt-to-equity swap for GM Korea in exchange for government support worth up to $1 billion. With that came another offer. The U.S. automaker will invest to develop new models in Korea as part of its plan to fix its problems here. Following a meeting with a task force headed by Korea's ruling party on Tuesday, the president of GM's international operations said the new models would be produced at 3 GM Korea factories around the country, and GM would eventually look to produce 500,000 cars annually. The offers have been made, but nothing has been decided, with South Korean government officials saying it's too early to push for any financial backing, as it wants to conduct due diligence before committing to any support. The restructuring proposal comes just a week after GM announced it would shut down one of its plants in the western port city of Kunsan by May and consider whether to continue operations at its 3 other plants in Korea. At the same time, GM's call for financial support from the Korean government is raising some eyebrows, as the company recently announced plans to invest $265 million in its Kansas plant. Critics say it's a sign GM is falling in line with President Trump's policy of putting America and American workers first, especially as Seoul and Washington are locked in high-stakes negotiations over a possible amendment of their bilateral free trade agreement. However, GM insists the ongoing FTA talks have not shaped any of their plans or announcements. Park So-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea has signed a new free trade agreement with 5 countries in Central America to expand its business reach in the region. The FTA is expected to bring positive effects to the Korean economy as well as pave a new trade route to North America. Cha Sang-mi reports.
South Korea is expanding its trade relations with the Central American market. Korea's trade ministry officially signed a free trade agreement with 5 Central American countries on Wednesday to reduce tariffs and eliminate barriers to increase business partnerships. Trade Minister Kim Yeon-jong said the trade pact with Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama will help create a comprehensive strategic partnership with the Central American nations. The signing of the deal comes after nearly 3 years of negotiations, which began in 2015. The negotiations touched upon goods, services, and investment, non-tariff barriers, trade remedies, and a dispute settlement system. The ministry said once the deal is implemented, duties on over 95% of goods will be scrapped, either immediately or in phases, boosting exports to Central America. Korea's state-run Institute for International Economic Policy said Korea's real GDP growth will see an additional 0.02% growth over the next 10 years, with consumer benefits worth nearly $700 million. Over 2,500 new jobs will be created by the FTA, and Korea's automobile and steel industries in particular are likely to benefit from the trade deal. Minister Kim underscored that South Korea is the first Asian country to strike such a deal with the countries in Central America, paving the way for Korean firms to expand their presence in the region ahead of their Chinese and Japanese rivals. There's also speculation that PACT could serve as a third route into the North American market amid the United States' growing trade protection moves. The FTA will likely go into effect in the first half of this year after the National Assembly approves it. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
South Korea's women's curling team has been winning a lot of fans both here and around the world. Now the teams sealed their spot in the Final Four, making them the first Korean curling team, male or female, to ever make it that far at the Olympics. Though their place is now assured, there's just one match in the round robin left to go this evening against Denmark. Our Won Jung-hwan has more on their amazing run.
The South Korean women's curling team on Wednesday achieved its 7th victory by beating the Olympic athletes from Russia, firmly securing the first ticket to the semi-final rounds. The host team, which still has a match against Denmark on Wednesday evening, has racked up a near-perfect run of victories after defeating curling powerhouses such as Canada, Switzerland, and Great Britain. The South Korean curlers have certainly become the breakout stars of these Olympics. So how did South Korea build a phenomenal women's curling team in a country where curling is not widely known nor practiced?
Before the Olympics, the team went through intensive trainings. In addition to advanced data analysis and strategic planning, they've become more disciplined and very well prepared.
The team had previously stated that the experience it built by facing top contenders before Pyeongchang contributed tremendously in increasing the members' overall confidence.
It was good to learn and prepare for the technical aspects of the game, but we also learned about control and pressure, something that is learned only by competing.
But according to an expert, there's more to this than meets the eye.
Most of the team members come from a similar background in terms of education and region, so they easily bonded together as a team. That, I believe, has been a crucial factor that helped them thrive and show their best.
Although curling is still a budding sport in South Korea, the team has taken the Olympics by storm by defeating world curling powerhouses and securing its well-earned spot in the semifinals. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
So could the two Koreas team up once again to host another global sporting event? North Korea's IOC official says, why not, after giving the Pyeongchang Olympics 2 thumbs up. And our Ji Myung-gil fills us in on the possible scenario if South Korea wins its bid to host the Asian Winter Games in 2021.
The North Korean representative on the International Olympic Committee, Chang Ung, said Tuesday that it is possible for the two Koreas to jointly hold the 2021 Asian Winter Games. According to Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency, Chang made the remarks in Beijing on his way back to North Korea, after suddenly leaving Pyeongchang last Sunday for health reasons. Chang mentioned that if that happens, the Masikryong ski resort on the outskirts of North Korea's east coast city of Wonsan could be used as one of the competition venues for 2021 Asian Winter Games. Chang made the remarks after the governor of South Korea's Gangwon-do province, Choi Mun-sun, said last Saturday that he is considering a proposal to co-host the 2021 Asian Winter Games with North Korea to strengthen ties between the two Koreas. Gangwon-do Province is the host province of the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Experts on North Korea say Choe's proposal could have been inspired by the two Koreas having a unified women's ice hockey team for the Pyeongchang Winter Games, as well as the North's participation in the Games through cheerleading, art performances, and taekwondo demonstrations. And when Yonhap News Agency reporters in Beijing asked Chang for his assessment of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, he said he would give the Olympics a perfect score, as it provided a chance to demonstrate harmony among all Korean people. The Asian Winter Games is an international multi-sport event held every 4 years for members of the Olympic Council of Asia. The host of the 2021 event will be decided at the 2018 Asian Summer Games in Indonesia in August. Ji Myung-kit, Arirang News.
And to tell us more about what issues still need to be discussed in regards to inter-Korean relations as well as U.S.-North Korea relations, Dr. Woo Jung-yap, a research fellow at the Sejong Institute, joins us in the studio today. Hello, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so top North Korean sports officials said that it is possible for the two Koreas to jointly host the 2021 Asian Winter Games. Now, how likely are we able to see this actually happening? And also, what would this actually mean for the two Koreas?
Governor Choi Moon-soon of the Gangwon province proposed this idea a couple of days ago, and Chang Ung, the IOC member from North Korea, responded very favorably. But at this stage, it's very difficult for us to see this actually happening because of all the sanctions now imposed on North Korea. As we observed this last month and this month, that even sending a flight to North Korea has to go through a lot of hassles, and even receiving things from North Korea and sending materials to North Korea is still under international sanctions. So unless there is a dramatic change in international community on North Korean sanction issues, then it's very difficult for us to actually bid for co-hosting the Winter Asian Games this time.
So I know there are slim chances of this happening, but if it does happen, then what would it mean for the two Koreas?
That means that we can continue to improve the inter-Korea relations after North Korea's participation in Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. So many hope that this continuation of the inter-Korean relations can lead to further deepening of our relations with North Korea, and ultimately could lead to the denuclearization of North Korea as well.
All right. Now, with the Pyeongchang Olympics nearing an end, we know that U.S. President Donald Trump's daughter, Ivanka Trump, is set to arrive here in South Korea on Friday for the closing ceremony. So how is she likely to be received here?
Actually, the role of the president's U.S. president family member is very different compared to the previous U.S. president, because President Trump is known to rely heavily on his family members, like Mr. Kushner and Ms. Ivanka Trump, on White House official staff members. So many countries acknowledge the importance of these family members. So Japan and India, prime ministers of those countries have greeted by themselves when Ivanka Trump visited their own country. So we know that Trump has relied on his family members on many issues. So I think it's very important, also important for South Korean government to host Ivanka Trump well, so we could deliver the message to Mr. Trump through Ms. Ivanka Trump.
So going along with that, I mean, what kind of significance does Ivanka's visit to South Korea carry, as the two countries are obviously trying to step up their bilateral cooperation?
Even though we have been forging a strong alliance for last 70 years, but these days we have a lot of issues to discuss with United States, and North Korean issues and trade issues are not easy ones to resolve between two governments. And we still don't know yet who's influencing Mr. Trump on those issues yet, because it has been known that Mr. Trump has a somewhat different decision-making style compared to his predecessors. So I think to take advantage of her visit to South Korea this time, we have to know know what issues Mr. Ivanka Trump has been influencing her father, Mr. Trump, this time. And so we can forge our alliance with the United States through Miss Ivanka Trump this time.
So who will she be likely meeting here while she's here? And also, what kind of issues are likely to be discussed with whomever she gets to meet? And also, what kind of message is she likely to deliver from her father, President Trump?
It has not been officially reported that who's going to greet her. But I think that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Kang Kyung-hwa, can meet her because Ms. Trump has been dealing with a lot of issues related to the foreign policies. And also our First Lady, Ms. Kim, can meet her because even though Ivanka Trump is the first daughter, but she represents Trump's family, so Ms. Kim can meet her. And if if we believe it's important that President Moon Jae-in himself can meet her with her delegation this time, because there are a lot of issues that we want to discuss with the United States directly. So we might use this opportunity to deliver a message directly to Mr. Trump through Ms. Ivanka Trump. And like Vice President Pence, that it is reported that Ms. Ivanka Trump is going to meet with the North Korean defectors in Korea. And that means that she also wants to deliver a strong message to North Korea that United States is not just going easy on the human rights violation issues from North Korea.
So you talked about her meeting with North Korean defectors, but I know the chances are very, very slim. But are there any chances that there could be any form of dialogue between the U.S. and North Korea while Ivanka's here?
It is not yet reported that whether North Korea is going to send its delegation yet another time for the closing ceremony. But it's reported that it's actually North Korea that canceled the meeting with the Vice President Pence 2 hours before its scheduled meeting, while Vice President Pence was here and Kim Yo-jong, the special envoy of North Korea, was here. So I think that, as you mentioned, that this time it's very difficult for us to speculate that two countries are going to meet during the closing ceremony of Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games.
And meanwhile, like you mentioned, the U.S. has been pressuring South Korea, especially over trade recently, slapping high tariffs on steel imports from a dozen countries, including South Korea. And President Moon Jae-in, in response to this, has ordered the government to deal with such unfair trade protectionist measures with a confident and resolute manner, perhaps raising concerns over a possible trade war between the two Koreas. Now, the South Korean government has said that issues regarding trade is separate from diplomacy, but I mean, are they really separate issues?
I think it's very difficult for us to separate two issues, but it has been U.S. Trump government policy to separate those issues. President Trump, even before he was elected as a president in November 2016, he has argued that U.S. has sacrificed its interest for the sake of diplomacy and security issues. So he personally believed that trade issues has promoted regardless of what security relations it has with other countries. So one time he and his staff mentioned that the WTO, the World Trade Organization, actually hurts U.S. interest. So before, his predecessors has dealt with the trade issues under the umbrella of the security domain. So even though they are not really satisfied with the trade issues, but their security relations with other countries keep them from going extremely further. But Trump administration is very different on that issue. They say that trade is trade, security is security. So they are trying to achieve like ultimate goal in trade issues, regardless of its effect on security and diplomatic relations with other countries. So I think it's safe for us to deal these issues separately from the security issues, but we have to see.
But South Korean government is kind of on the same line as the Trump administration in this regards?
It's because that trade issues this time the doesn't have enough implications on security issues this time. So when we can say that trade issues overlaps with the security issues, then maybe United States, these trade issues has to be initiated by the security area. But as far as I know, that U.S. security sectors and the diplomatic sectors does not have any saying on these trade issues. So Trump deals with the trade and the security very separately. So I think it's safe for us to deal this issue very separately this time.
And we know that the South Korean government is planning to send a high-level official to the U.S. soon to discuss issues regarding North Korea and North Korea's nuclear program. So what can we expect on this front?
Ministry of Unification has explained to the ambassadors of related countries after the meeting with Kim Yo-jong, the special envoy of North Korea, when she visits South Korea. But I think it's important for South Korea to discuss with the United States, our closest ally, to how to proceed on dealing with North Korean issues. Because apparently South Korean government try to continue these inter-Korean relations even after the Pyeongchang Olympic Winter Games. But after Olympic Games, the momentum is going to be lost if we don't put much efforts on it. Right. So that is why Korean government is trying to send high-ranking government officials as a delegation to the United States to discuss how two allies can continue and take advantage of this momentum that Pyongyang shows some openings in its foreign relations.
And South Korea and the U.S. have also announced plans on holding their postponed joint military drills before April. Now, what kind of impact could this plan have on a potential summit between the two Koreas?
Oh, we have to see, because North Korea has argued that United States has to stop its hostile act on North Korea. And this joint military drill is considered as a hostile act toward North Korea by North Koreans. So there's a high chance that North Korea is going to blame Korea and the United States for disrupting the inter-Korea relations because of the resumption of joint military drills this time. But it's also very important for two allies to keep pressure on North Korea until it opens and come to the table for the denuclearization. So we have to see how North Korea is going to respond after the resumption of the joint military drills by two allies.
And also on the military talks between the two Koreas. I mean, the two sides have agreed to hold such talks when they met on January 9th. What's happening with those? Both North and South Korean representatives agreed to have military talks when they met on January 9th. But the purpose of having military talks is not about to resolve the nuclear issues or strategic issues. It's to prevent any small accident that can be escalated into the bigger warfares between two Koreas. So before Olympic Games, South Korean government has concerns that minor skirmishes on the borderline can be led to the bigger security crisis. So that's why South Korean government proposed to have military talks with the North Korean government to avoid any accident. So as North Korean participated in Olympic Games and North Korea proposed the summit, so I think that the imminent demand for the military talks is not that high this time. So when time comes up, it's natural that two governments is going to talk about some minor issues, including the borderline issues or louder speaker issues. So I think we can wait for that. All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our show, but make sure to tune in to Arirang News for more domestic and global news updates throughout the day. Thank you for watching and see you soon.